got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome in GameTime Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we get ready for the second Wednesday of the college basketball season. That is upon us here. We've got 42 games on tap, Division I matchups. There are a few of the other lower division schools going in. I think 13 games on the extra board as we all try and kind of assimilate to college basketball season being back. And we don't have a ton of huge games like we did, of course, last night, where we were treated in the Champions contest there, where we watched Kansas handle business against Michigan State, and then got a really good nightcap with Duke and Kentucky, with Duke going ice cold in the second half, and Kentucky and brand new head coach Mark Pope there, former University of Kentucky player, the new head coach there, getting his team a victory over the Duke Blue Devils in what was a very exciting game. And for those that had the over, you were kind of shocked how Duke scored 46 points in the first half and only 26 in the second half. Meanwhile, Kentucky on their way to a 77-72 win, handled their business. Three-point shooting was the big difference there, as the Duke Blue Devils couldn't hit a three to save themselves in that game last night, and that is why they have taken their first L of the season. Now, we do have some of the other big premier programs in the country in action, as mid-majors and low-major teams all seem to be getting 3 touchdowns in games tonight. Teams like Auburn, Houston, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Illinois going at it here tonight. The Johnnies are in action here against Wagner. They, too, are laying a big, big number here. UConn, of course, number 3 in the country, the defending champs. They're taking on our friends at Lemoyne, the Lemoyne Dolphins at it here tonight. Tennessee will be taking on Montana, and BYU, in fact, will also be in action. So we've got plenty of college hoops that we'll take a look at here tonight in some of these games, and certainly look forward to a couple of games that I think are going to be very interesting. One of them being Vanderbilt taking on Cal, as the University of Cal Berkeley Bears hopping on a plane heading east to Vandy. Mark Madsen now in his second year as the Cal head coach. Both of these rosters are going to be much better than they were a year ago. Both of these rosters also huge in the transfer portal. Both have a serious amount of talent, but also at this point in the season, neither of these teams has really been tested all that much here. Vandy loves to get out into transition, loves to be able to run, and Cal certainly is more athletic than they have been, and they ended up bringing in a couple of really good shooters from outside the program. Ton of firepower in this game, and I also would not be shocked if the over is not in play. But quite honestly, at this point, both of these teams, as far as I'm concerned, when you compare the rosters and the style of play, this is a competitive game. There is no way in which I think Vandy should be laying more than 2 buckets, nearly 3 buckets, in fact, as this was 8.5, I believe, was the opening number of this game. Down to 7.5 now in a number of spots, and I agree with that line move. I do think this is a 1-2 bucket game at best, and I would not be shocked if Cal wins this game outright. You also have, of course, a little bit later on tonight, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this USC team. I do think USC is going to get a lot of credit for what they once were back in the day, but are not anymore, as it is a transition period. Listen, USC is always going to be deep and talented. We all know this, but they also have, instead of 4- and 5-star talents on this team now, they've got much more of a mid-major all-star feel than what than the Bronny Jameses of the world, shall we say, in years past. Good team, but I don't believe that they have the same caliber of talent that they have had in years past. And by the way, they're taking on a UT Arlington team who, if you're watching now, circle this program, circle this team. This team was the 3rd best ATS team in the country a year ago. And they ended up playing teams like New Mexico, Grand Canyon, Texas Tech, and almost won those games outright. But certainly they were overlooked in the marketplace. They are a better team this year than they were a year ago, and they're getting 16.5, 17.5 points tonight against USC. Remember UT Arlington, this is a team with a coach in KT Turner who's young, but he's also already proved that he gets these kids to play a very good style of basketball, something that will make teams that are double-digit favorites very nervous in the final 3 or 4 minutes of the game, and I think that's what's going to happen here tonight. Looking very forward to college basketball here as only the second Wednesday of the season, but it's going to be an awful lot of fun watching how this unfolds. We do have a couple of other games that are going to be on the board here tonight. UConn should have no problem, as we mentioned, the number 3 team in the country. These are all of the kind of big boys versus the low mid majors to the mid majors looking to catch checks. Lemoyne should have some fun in this one, but UConn, I'd be shocked as they're laying 38.5 points here. I'd be shocked if we don't see the second and third members of the bench on UConn in this game rather quickly. They certainly feel like they could be dropping 100 points in this game. And when you have games like this in which you're going UConn taking on Lemoyne, where is Lemoyne? Take a look at some of the team totals and give yourself an angle to go that way. Nobody wants to lay 38 points, but if you're confident that UConn's going to be able to put enough points on the board, maybe even triple digits, why not take a look at the team totals up and over? Also, don't sleep on the Tennessees of the world at home, getting ready to take on Montana tonight. Montana, again, the Grizz, good, good mid-major program here, usually an awful lot of talent, but Tennessee, they're laying 26 and a half. Do not sleep on Tennessee being able to drop a whole lot of points on the Grizz here tonight. So some team total opportunities, I think, with a few of the bigger name brands in college basketball tonight, but a couple of really good, and I mean really good mid-major teams will be going at it here tonight, including the Hofstra Pride. Do not sleep on Hofstra. Seton Hall, what a down season it is going to be. I am not impressed with Seton Hall at all. I am very impressed with what the Pride are bringing to the table, and I think for sure they are a live dog here tonight, getting 4.5 against Seton Hall. Boy, oh boy, they can shoot the three. So can we. Game Time Decisions will be back more here on the Grid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri, joined by our good friend Mark Zinno here, getting ready for a loaded slate tonight. College hoops about to get underway, actually a couple of games underway, but we're coming off the first night of the 2024 NBA Cup, and, now we've got another loaded slate of games in the association here tonight, not related to the Cup, though, as the Tuesday and Friday games over the next month will determine what happens with that grouping here. But we do have some interesting games following that up here tonight, one in which, well, I don't know. Do we look to back teams that were unceremoniously bounced last night, like the Celtics or the Minnesota Timberwolves? I mean, there were some very head-scratching games last night in that opening round. Do we look to build off of anything that we saw last night?
I don't know if you look to build off of it, but there are a bunch of teams playing on back-to-backs tonight that you probably could take advantage of. I mean, that's kind of the way I looked at it, that, teams who didn't play last night in the Cup now that are playing tonight probably have a little bit fresher legs. So that's probably one advantage you can get.
Sixers, Cavs come to mind here. The Pistons, who beat Miami in the most unbelievable fashion, they're now taking on Milwaukee. So there is a lot of basketball, and there is, of course, a couple of interesting spots, spreads, and totals. And the Knicks, for instance, come to mind as they had I want to say easy. It felt very easy over the Sixers. They ended up winning that game. Now they got to come home and take on a Chicago Bulls team. Knicks had their big group. They're not a very deep team, but they had a lot of guys play a lot of minutes last night in that game. What do we think we're going to get from the Knicks tonight here against Chicago?
Well, the way I looked at this game more than anything is the Knicks defense has been lackluster this year overall, but it's been a lot better at home. This is just the Knicks' fourth home game of the year. And in the three previous home games, they've been really good at home, allowing just 110 points against opponents. Their only loss in the three games was against the undefeated Cavaliers. But they're allowing just 100.6 points per game to opponents at home. Look, the Bulls play fast, and they're not exactly a great defensive team. But still, this is a Knicks team that's going to have tired legs. They don't score a bunch. And I would expect that when they get home, they'll lock down on defense like they have against their other opponents. The Bulls' numbers offensively, they've played a whole bunch of bad teams this year, bad defenses, the Hawks, the Nets, the Jazz, and the Bucks, whose defense is still, questionable at best. So this is the highest total we've seen for the Knicks the entire season at 231.5 by 2 points. So I went under on this one, Joe. I mean, I looked at it and I said, these are two teams right here that aren't really great offenses, and yet you have a Knicks defense that has been better at home than it has been on the road. I would expect in front of the MSG crowd, they'll put their best effort forward, and they're not going to need much offensively to beat the Bulls.
Yeah, I agree here. I think this game does slow down here a little bit tonight. I love the underplay there. I don't love the amount of minutes that all the starters for Knicks had to put in last night, but we'll see what we get out of those legs here. And we also have a game in which maybe we're expecting a little more pace, a few more possessions, a few more points when you're looking at the Wizards taking on the Spurs, which, from what I understand, Popovich expected to make a full recovery. It was, in fact, a stroke, I believe, that he had, but they do expect that he will make a full recovery and be back with the team at some point here. But how do we see the Spurs and Wizards tonight?
Well, the Washington Wizards play with the third fastest pace in the NBA, and they don't play any defense, which typically leads to scoring, at least for San Antonio. I'm not interested in laying 10 points with the San Antonio Spurs, but I look at this game, and I figure that the Spurs are going to be able to score. Look, if they have any chance at covering this, they're going to have to put up numbers. By my math, really, if the Wizards get to about 107, close to 110, we should be good here. I think the Spurs can get to 120, and if they do that, it's not going to take much more from the Wizards, who aren't a great offensive team either, which is why they play so fast, and they don't shoot well, so the ones closest to the basket are in their favor. But I think that we get some points here scored. Wembanyama should have a big night, too, if you're looking towards player props.
I agree with you on that one, too, as well. I'm looking at the longest winning streak to start an NBA season. 2015-16 Golden State Warriors rattled off 24 straight. The Cavaliers, rather, they're at 12 now, Zin. Just trying to make that transition. They're at 12-0. They're taking on a Sixers team that I think is just good. They're going to have to rethink what they spent money on with this team, because the chances of Paul George and Embiid being healthy enough, long enough to make a difference this season should be quite laughable. But it's a very winnable game for Cleveland. They should win this, right? Get at least to 13-0, no?
they should win it. Whether they're going to cover this number is a whole different conversation. Look, everyone's talking about this streak. The Cavaliers obviously know, and the pressure is going to start to mount for them with every single game. This is one of these games where I would think it's a lot closer than people expect. Look, if this is like a game where I take the Cavs in the first quarter. If they're not sprinting out to a big lead here, then I expect this thing to be close the entire way. If they can't separate early from the shell that is the 76ers at this point in time, then I don't know that there's this late run. I mean, it could be the way the Cavs have played, but I look towards the first quarter here and say, look, if the Cavs can get out to an early lead and then play comfortably and let their defense do the rest, yeah, they should cover this number easily. But it's one of these things where they could walk into this game assuming they're going to win this game no matter what. They'll take this opponent probably a little bit too lightly. They may look to rest guys early on or not give them their full complement of minutes, and they could find themselves in a much tighter game than expected. So I'm not getting involved here, but if I was going to look at the Cavaliers, I'd look to them early to try to get a big lead, and if they don't, guess what? If they ain't covering early, Joe, you know what I always say, they probably ain't covering late.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, who was not covering early, nor were they covering late, was the damn Minnesota Timberwolves last night, who somehow lost to the Portland Trailblazers, 122-108. So guess who they get tonight? The Portland Trailblazers. They're not losing 2 in a row, Zin, right?
I would think not. I mean, look, this is a team that has Western Conference Finals aspirations, so they should take that loss last night personally and probably come back tonight with a vengeance.
Yeah, first half for me for Minnesota. Expect this game to be over before it starts. All right, let's talk a little Week 11 NFL when we get back. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. You picked your own cheek? Because I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma giving her Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday now, November the 13th, as we get ready to kick off Week 11 of the NFL season tomorrow night with a good one as the Eagles and Commanders are going to do battle. Listen, Commanders had a chance to win that game. Maybe should have. Eagles are playing some of their best football, especially defensively there. Mark Zinno stepping in again for us on this Thursday night game. Where do you go here? I don't. The number felt a little high total-wise on a short week for these two teams, and given how the Eagles love to run the ball and given how Washington loves not stopping the run, it just feels like this could be a very methodical kind of game. How are you approaching this tomorrow night?
Well, I think the Eagles, obviously have been a better version of themselves over the course of the last couple of weeks. The 3.5 obviously is key here. And Washington as a dog is a lot more appealing than Washington as a favorite. That said, the Eagles' statistical defensive numbers are probably a little bit inflated. Look, 5 of their 9 games so far have been against passing offenses in the bottom 10 of the league. When they face good passing offenses like Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and Cincinnati, they've gotten thrown on, and they've gotten thrown on a lot and well. And that is where I look for this game as Jaden Daniels' passing yards prop is at 226.5. I think he gets over that number. I think in reality, when you look at the games that the Eagles have played against the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Falcons, and the Bengals, they've all given up close to 300 yards or more passing. In fact, they gave up over 402 of those. So I think Jaden Daniels can attack this secondary. I think he's going to have some success throwing the football. And as much as Washington is going to, want to try to stick to the run here against an Eagles pass rush that's still pretty good, I would think that they are going to have to throw. Given the Washington Commanders defense still has some holes in it, even though Dan Quinn's made it a lot better, this is also a Commanders defense that 6 of their 10 games have been against bottom 10 pass defenses. Or pass offenses, rather. So some of these numbers look a little bit inflated. This is a step up in class for both these teams here. I expect the game, obviously, to be tight. Not really sure. I think it's one of those games where, one play that could swing momentum might end up deciding the outcome. So I'll stay away from the side, but I'll look to Jaden Daniels to go over that 226.5.
Gotta go, too. I know we've been playing it every week, but the whole tush push is a real thing. The Jalen Hurts anytime TD at decent. I mean, it was even money last week, and it was the first touchdown. It feels like it should just be an automatic play because you kind of feel if they get inside the 5-yard line anywhere in there, that's what's coming. No, Jalen Hurts anytime TD?
Well, not only that, I mean, he's clearly elusive enough to do it anywhere inside the 10-yard line, right? I mean, he'll take off and run whenever it's possible. So it's never a bad play here. But, Saquon should have another big night as well. This is not a Washington defense that you look at and you go, they're stout up front. They're going to be able to stop teams from running the football. It's a bottom 10, bottom 5, actually, run defense. So Saquon anytime touchdown also looks like it's a decent play. And I think he should have a big game. But also, again, I would look at, a sort of completions prop for Jalen Hurts. A lot of his passing numbers are depressed because he runs so much, which is understandable. But
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.
Yeah, go ahead.
Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year.
Go ahead.
I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away.
All right, back in there. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we certainly appreciate Mark Zinno stopping by, hanging out with us here. We will be back. Of course, Mark, we'll see you again tomorrow and every other day here on the SportsGrid Network. Get ready for CT Bets, though. We got more NFL and college football to talk, and we'll do that when Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys that can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc., you're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by. And usually on Wednesdays, right about now, we welcome in the fantastic duo of Chris Thurston, CT Betts, and the Wizard Kenny White. But Kenny White's broom apparently broke down, CT. So we'll have to get the Wizard in next week. In the meantime, here, my friend, we've got college football week 12 to talk about here. We're going to start with a game out west that I've heard both sides of the argument here. Washington at home taking on UCLA. UCLA just keeps winning games, including one against Iowa last week at home. Now they got to go to Washington, though. That's a different place. What are we thinking we're going to get between these two teams?
Yeah, it's the Friday night game on Fox, Joe, and they've been playing some good football. Like you said, everything runs through Ethan Garbers, the trigger man. And, Joe, he really hadn't made any mistakes until last Friday versus the Hawkeyes, like you said. He throws 2 picks in the end zone versus the Hawkeyes. The Hawkeyes end up losing their 2 All-American linebackers there in that game, Joe. It flips the script. Once big Jay Higgins goes out, it was kind of the end that was a big blow for the Hawkeyes D. He everything goes through him on defense. Then the Hawkeyes all of a sudden have Brendan Sullivan knocked out of the game. And, Joe, they're on their 5th string quarterback. I come back from going to the bathroom. I'm like, what the heck just happened? The announcer's going, yeah. This kid was playing scout linebacker last week, Joe, and now he's taking the snaps. It was totally insane. I do give the Bruins a little bit of credit. They plan to shut down Caleb Williams. They did just that. Now we get a buy low spot here for the Huskies, who get to come back home after absolutely getting blown out at Penn State. And that's what Penn State does. They blow out mediocre Big Ten teams and lose to the upper level teams in the Big Ten. Huskies are well coached, though, and Jed Fish will have a nice game plan to get Deshaun Foster's head spinning, who I think is pretty brain dead, Joe, the head coach of UCLA. Outside of Iowa last week, UCLA has kind of struggled against top defenses in the Big Ten. They need to win one more game to become bowl eligible, and they have a lot more options on offense with Will Rogers under center, where he's been fantastic at home. He completed about 71% of his passes at home. I made this game closer to 8, Joe. Huskies in a rout, so we're on Washington, -3.5.
All right, looking at Washington, and actually I'm starting to see 4s popping in there, CT, so without a doubt, the Washington money starting to come in, and we're also starting to see a lot of confusion with this game coming up, Tennessee taking on Georgia. A lot of questions on whether Tennessee will even have their freshman phenom quarterback available. Different reports saying he is going, saying he's not going. This is a big game for both of them. You can't have more than 2 losses and be talked about in the playoffs, right? So must win doesn't say enough what this is for this Georgia team, right?
Yeah, Joe, I put this on our card today because I wanted to talk about this game. I posted this on Monday, as you know. This is a huge play for me. Posted on Twitter if you follow me at CTBet16. Georgia minus 8.5, 2-unit play for me. Now, Joe, we're looking at the odds screen. Went up to 10.5, some 11s at some point today. It's coming back down to 10 at a couple places right now. And like you said, there's conflicting reports. I've heard from multiple sources, good, reliable sources, that Nico's not going to be able to go this weekend for the Vols. And I've heard from a couple sources that are very reliable as well that he's going to play. Joe, I don't understand this. He's in concussion protocol, but he's been practicing the last 2 days. That makes no sense to me. Not sure how you could practice being in concussion protocol. But like you said, Dogs in danger of missing the playoffs. And that's when I want to back Kirby. I bet this game thinking that Nico was in, and I like them regardless if he's playing or not. Like when everyone's trashing Carson Beck, that's when I want to get behind him, Joe. Beck's still a top 5 trigger man in college football, and I think he's going to deliver on Saturday, get the job done. Heard numerous talking heads this week. Carson Beck just isn't it. Last 7 for the Dogs versus the Vols, have resulted in Georgia by 14 plus. I think this goes to 8 straight Saturday, Joe. And Joe, this is what I'll be wearing. My turnover chain, Joe. This is the Dogs turnover chain, okay? Because I expect them to be turning over, whether it's Nico, whether it's the backup. That Dogs defense is going to eat on Saturday night, Joe.
Oh, you liking the Dogs here. Listen, I thought the under in that Georgia game last week and Ole Miss was the right call. Listen, even if the kid Nico doesn't go, right? I mean, the kid Gaston Moore, the backup, has been with Josh Heupel forever. But still, the defenses feel like the best parts of these two teams here. And at 48 and a half, it feels like an under is in again, because that Georgia team is going to limit a backup quarterback scoring for Tennessee. I don't care who their head coach is. So I'm with you there with Georgia. What do we do with K-State? Usually we want to back them at home, right? They're taking on Arizona State. But coming off a bye, I mean, they should win this game rather easily. At least the spread says they should, no?
I agree with you, Joe. But then you look at this Arizona State Sun Devil team. They've been your and I's bugaboo all year long, especially mine. I don't think I've won a game versus them. And I give Dillingham some credit. I mean, it's been remarkable what this team has done. But you hit it right on the head. This K-State team, they've been a lot better at home this year, and they're coming off the bye. The last time we saw them on the field, they lost outright on the road to Houston, and I actually gave Houston out on this show that week to cover the spread. Arizona State, they're coming off another miracle win and cover at home last week versus UCF. Joe, that was my only loss of the week last week in college football. I had UCF plus 3.5. They lose, and they lose by 4. It's just mind blowing. Scadaboo was questionable, but I guess you could argue that it didn't phase the Big 12 leader in all-purpose yards because they still got the job done. Looks like he's been cleared. He's gonna play this weekend. It doesn't change my play here. I'm on K-State. Chris Kleiman off the bye is a guy and a team. I want to back, and we're gonna do just that Saturday. Everybody just remembers the game versus Houston. Climbing off the bye has been money, and he'll have a good game plan in place here against the Sun Devils. Avery Johnson probably bounce back. Giddens probably has a big game here. K-State by double digits in Little Manhattan.
Yeah, even if Scadaboo goes, I mean, Kansas State is the top defense in the Big 12 against the run. So where's he running to, even if he does play? And by the way, Wildcats undefeated at home. So Arizona State, their 2 losses on the road. Doesn't feel like a great spot for Arizona State here. What do we do with Utah, though? I mean, what a gut-wrenching defeat in the last seconds there against BYU. Thanks, refs. Great job by them, of course. But do they bounce back? Because Colorado feels like they're playing their best football right now. I got to give Deion credit from where they started to where they are. Do they get it done here?
I give him credit too. And Travis Hunter, odds-on favorite to win the Heisman, Joe. It's his to lose. And like you said, Utah coming off a hard-fought game that they should have won, deserved to win. Terrible call at the end. Cinderella story keeps going for the Cougs. And Rose, he looks settled in for Utah, the trigger man. Then yesterday, I get an alert. He's out for the year. Kuthi, the tight end, he's out for the year. This team got nobody, right? I don't know. I think this is still a team that was predicted to win the Big 12 here. This is too many points, Joe. Public loves to bet Deion in Colorado. They already took some money, Colorado. This number is ticked up here. I lean Utah in this one, and I think I'm waiting, Joe, because I think we're going to be able to get a few more points here closer to kickoff because, man, they just love to bet Deion, Joe. I make this a lot shorter.
Yeah, I mean, Willingham, he'll have his guys at Utah ready to go here to bounce back. Colorado might win, but that's covering's a different story. We'll talk some NFL with CT next here on the Grid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on Sports.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Chris Thurston, CT Bets in the house as we are getting ready for Week 11 of the NFL season, and it kicks off tomorrow night with a really good game in the NFC East, kind of up for grabs, and I think we've all come to the conclusion that it's going to come down to the Eagles and the Commanders, and this game tomorrow night will go a long way in deciding who is going to be the top of this division. Eagles laying 3.5. Commanders could have had, should have had, would have had that game against Pittsburgh, but they didn't. They need this one, but I don't know. Are we thinking they're going to get it in Philly?
I don't think they are, Joe. And as great as Jaden Daniels has been for the Commanders, the Commanders, they've been like that feel good story of the year. They've overperformed expectations above and beyond this year. I like Daniels a lot. You and I talked about him a lot this year, and we both think that he's a great trigger man in the NFL, and I think he's going to be pretty good. after time, but he's played 9 games so far, Joe. I do think the ceiling is high for him, but I think this is a pretty tough spot for the Rook tomorrow night. The Steelers defense slowed him down a bit this past weekend. And, the Commies, they were held to about 4 yards per play. He was also sacked 3 times. That's something I said on this show last week to expect when I gave out the Steelers. I think there's a good chance he's in for something pretty similar tomorrow night, Joe, versus Vic Fangio's bunch. Gulls D finally starting to play together and be the squad I thought they would be this year. I know the Cowboys are banged up, but this is still the NFL, and it's still hard to hold a team to 146 total yards. Like, that's pretty impressive, and that's what the Eagles did to the Cowboys last week. And when they run the football with Say gone, they're a very tough team to beat. And as we all know, the Commies have a really tough time stopping the run. The Gulls, I think they're going to have a great game plan. Too many weapons for the Commanders to handle. I've been licking my chops waiting for this game for a few weeks now. This is Commies versus the Eagles. They're fighting for the NFC East, these two teams. And I think the Washington Commanders are going to get a little wake-up call tomorrow night versus the Eagles at home under the lights.
Yeah, I give them credit for what they've done, Washington. But I do think what you're seeing is this Philadelphia team, especially with Vic Fangio on the defensive side, getting better and better and better. And I think the best way to beat the Commanders is by keeping Daniels on the sideline. And I don't know anybody who runs 12-play drives better than the Eagles do, just wearing that defense down out on the field. So it's a heck of a way to kick off the week 11. And then, of course, a great way to end it. And I know the NFL was thinking this was going to be a much better night game than what it's going to turn out to be between Dallas and the Texans. But the Cowboys are getting over a touchdown, and the Texans, they've lost 3 or 4. I don't know. Call me crazy. This feels like a big ask for the Texans, no?
I think so. I mean, I know this is a really ugly one for me, and I had some uglies last week, Joe, on this show, and they did pretty well with the dogs that we had here. And, Dallas, they continued to just embarrass themselves and get blown out of the water. And now they've lost 4 straight. And Texans, they come into this standalone game, after blowing a huge lead this past Sunday night at home to the Lions. They've now lost 2 straight. Nico Collins still not back. They've cleared him, but, he's questionable again to play this weekend. As bad as the Cowboys were, they did get Micah Parsons back, and he's angry, right, Joe? We saw that. He's angry on the field. They sacked Hurts a lot. They forced some turnovers, and then he's angry off the field, too. We saw him rip his coach, Mike McCarthy, apart and say, he's embarrassed for a lot of the guys on his team that have been there forever. This isn't Cowboy football. This is not what he wants to be doing. And I think he's going to be even more angry in another primetime spot this upcoming Monday. And I really, this is a pretty hot take, I guess, because I didn't think that the defense for the Cowboys, I don't think it was god awful. But, by all means, it wasn't good. But I've said a lot on shows this year that, this Texans team, it's just not the same from last year. There's some gaps there. There's some holes from last year's team. Last year's team was just special. And this is just a play, Joe, based on power ratings wise. I cannot justify the Texans laying 7.5 on the road in a standalone Monday Night Football games. I think the Cowboys are going to play a little bit better. These guys, the players should get together here and say, listen, we can't keep getting embarrassed week after week here. I'm sure Jones is going to get involved here. It's just a numbers type play here, Joe. The Texans just cannot be laying this many. So we're going to grab the 7.5 with the Cowboys to stay within the number here, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, prior to that debacle against Philadelphia, Cooper Rush in relief had been, I think, 5-1 for the Cowboys. He knows the system. kind of no excuse except for the, apparently the sunlight might be getting in the players. Please don't ask me. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard ever. But how does this end up playing out, do you think? Because Houston, I'm guessing, has won enough games to kind of run away with their division at this point. And they might very well lose this game. But Dallas hasn't been very good at home. 3 wins here. I mean, this is Houston going the wrong way, it feels like. But is there anybody who can catch them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Probably not. But they have to put it together here. Maybe Indy, but I don't really see it, Joe. I mean, they're still a very well coached team, and they just haven't been able to put it together at the end of games. Right? That's when they've slipped away all year long.
Yep.
You saw D'Amico Ryan's face on the sidelines at the end of that game, man. It looked like his head was spinning. He didn't even know what happened. And Joe, Dan Campbell did that to him. Dan Campbell, I give him a lot of credit. He's looked a lot better, Joe, this year. Calling the plays. He's stayed composed. He hasn't really made too many boneheaded mistakes. Lions are going to be tough, man. They're a tough out.
Houston 9-1 in the first half against the number, 1-9 against the number in the second half. Ooh. That's the Houston Texans. CT, we'll talk to you again during the week. We'll be back. Game Time Decisions here on the Grid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Ready? I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, hey, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Pinching your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we look to wrap up this first hour together as we get ready here in just a few minutes. Maction football here tonight with a trio of games, including Kent State getting ready to take on Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks there. This one appears to be the market thinks is going to be close as they are only laying, I believe, Miami of Ohio 30.5 points here tonight. So maybe Kent State can keep it close. Who are we kidding? That is never going to happen. We also have Eastern Michigan getting ready to take on Ohio, and Ohio These are two teams trending in opposite directions. Both teams are coming off of extended breaks, but a much better spot here for the Ohio Bobcats as Eastern Michigan battling all sorts of injuries. But the Bobcats have one of the best, if not the best, I believe, rushing attack in the MAC. They are undefeated at home this season. However, there is no better team as an underdog over the years than Eastern Michigan getting points. You never want to bet Eastern Michigan laying points, but boy, oh boy, as a underdog, they have been one of the most profitable teams to back in MACtion football. So if push comes to shove, I would absolutely have to look to back Eastern Michigan and grab those points here tonight. And then, of course, you've got one final game here tonight, which is going to involve Akron taking on Northern Illinois here. And the Zips, 2-7 on the season, 1-4 in the MAC. Northern Illinois, don't forget, this was the team, you want to talk about Jekyll and Hyde. Northern Illinois was the team that beat Notre Dame early in the season, if you can recall that. Great defense, very older team, a lot of upperclassmen. They're only 2-3 in MACtion this year, 5-4 on the season. They will be at Husky Stadium here tonight as that game gets ready to go. But the Zips, having lost 4 of their last 5, including Buffalo last week, beat them 41-30. And yet Northern Illinois is coming into this one after beating Western Michigan 42-28, breaking a 2-game losing streak. They had dropped the 2 games prior there. This feels like it can only go one way, and that way is towards Northern Illinois. Here is the problem. Northern Illinois, as a big favorite, has never, ever been a great bet. We just talked about Eastern Michigan being somebody you're always looking for when it comes to getting points. Well, I got news for you. Northern Illinois has always been a team getting points like they were against Notre Dame. That is a team you want to look to back. But Northern Illinois laying points, yeesh. Although Northern Illinois is the better football team, make no mistake about it. But I just can't run to the window to lay over 2 touchdowns with Northern Illinois, who is proven to play down to the level of competition over the years with this coach. Coach Hammock, his defense has always been good, but the offense seems to disappear in games in which they are supposed to win rather easily. The defense, by the way, this year allowing under 19 points a game. But the other problem they have is that they're allowing over 400 yards of offense a game. So they are bending but not breaking this season. That doesn't help me cover 14.5, 15.5 points here. So it might be a dog kind of night here in MACtion football as we get ready for week number 12 in college football altogether, and a whole lot of great Friday games as well coming up, including we just talked to CT Bets. Chris Thurston likes Washington against UCLA, and that game is Friday night this week. So a nice slate of games, not just tonight, Thursday night football we talked about in the NFL, nice Friday slate of games in college football heading into what is going to be a big weekend in both college and the NFL. All right, we got another hour of Game Time Decisions coming up. Tip-off coming here in just a few minutes for a couple of games in the association. The Magic at home taking on the Indiana Pacers. We'll have Celtics Nets as well as Bulls, Knicks, Cavs, and 76ers to talk about in the next hour. Come back and join us. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Fortunately, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions, off and running hour number 2 here on this Wednesday now, November the 13th. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by, hanging out with us here as we're getting ready for a loaded slate tonight across a number of sports. We got plenty of college basketball getting ready to tip off coming up this hour, not to mention the NBA the day after the start of the NBA Cup, this season's NBA Cup. Tuesdays and Fridays will be group play here over the next 4 weeks before we start diving into, of course, the brackets and the situation from there, trying to crown a second-year champion. You may recall it was the Lakers and the Pacers in the finals last year in Vegas, with the Lakers holding on to get it done. Who might be the favorite this year? Well, if you thought it was going to be the Celtics, well, they didn't do a very good job last night against the Atlanta Hawks, as they ended up getting boat raced in that game there, which is kind of laughable that they would have lost to the Atlanta Hawks last night, but that is exactly what they did. But they were not alone in not showing up in that opening round of this second season NBA Cup, because we also watched the Portland Trailblazers as a double-digit dog last night end up getting it done against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And wouldn't you know it, the Minnesota Timberwolves are back at it against Portland here tonight. And I could be crazy, but it feels like this might not be a bad spot to be backing the Minnesota Timberwolves, at least early in this game, because last night, huge games from Robert Williams. Scoot Henderson was good. Jeremy Grant was good. Shaden Sharp was good. Adviser was great there. Banton was good. They had everybody up and down this Portland lineup, all of these young guns, all good. And it makes sense because if you recall over the weekend, boy, oh boy, not very happy was the coach of the Portland Trailblazers of the effort that his team was giving. Had a few choice words to call these young players, and you were wondering whether or not they would respond. And the answer was they did. They responded in a big way as, again, another off night for Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert was no good. Julius Randle does his usual MIA. But the question is that repeatable for the Portland Trailblazers? And I think the answer is, yeah, probably not. I would expect the Timberwolves to come out hot in this one. I have no problem. I think the number in the first half, 5 or laying 6, I do think that the Minnesota Timberwolves are in a good opportunity here to bounce back. You also have, of course, the New York Knicks getting ready here in just a couple of minutes to tip off here. Actually, bottom of this hour here in about 20 minutes. You'll have the Knicks taking on the Bulls. Knicks handled their business against the Sixers last night, who, quite honestly, better figure some things out, because I don't know that investing in a 34-year-old Paul George, who is never healthy long enough to matter anymore, and a Joel Embiid, who, quite honestly, has his own issues staying on the court and being healthy when the team needs him the most. I'm not quite sure the Sixers, sitting at, 2-8 on the year, are a team that has a very uplifting future here. Maxi's already on the shelf and hurt. Not good. Not to mention, they've got the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers coming to town here tonight, and I would be shocked if the Cavs don't continue their winning streak to start the season and make it a nice 13-0. Those are some of the headlines that we're going to be keeping an eye on here tonight. In fact, Adam Kaufman will stop by here in a few. We'll get his thoughts on some of these games here tonight. We also have plenty, as we said, college basketball getting ready to tip off here tonight. And we had some great blue bloods going at it last night. We saw Kansas dismiss Tom Izzo and Michigan State with the win last night. Was not a shock at all. Again, those of you that have been following the Michigan State program, you have probably heard what many of us have heard, is it's not one of the most talented Michigan State teams that Izzo has had in the past years. They don't shoot the three particularly well, but Izzo is a Hall of Fame coach. He's one of the best in the game. He will, and I promise you, Michigan State will get better in a month from now than what we saw last night. In the meantime, Kansas handled business as we expect them to do, as one of the top teams in the country. And then you had Duke, who looked like they were going to run away with it against Kentucky last night after dropping 46 points in the first half, as Flagg and Knippel were just having their way with that against that Kentucky defense. And then the second half came, and they couldn't buy a bucket. They went from scoring 46 points in the first half to 26 points in the second half. And it wasn't great defense by Kentucky. It was a couple of forced errors down the stretches, and the inability to be able to hit a three is what really did in the Duke Blue Devils last night. But Kentucky showed up, and they showed out in a big, big way last night, getting that win. Now, tonight, we're going to keep an eye on a couple of different games, including the Tennessee Vols here, another one of these top 10 teams that has big aspirations this year. And like I said, they are going to scare a lot of teams in the SEC as well. They should. This is a very, very good Tennessee team, but they're going to be taking on the Montana Grizz. That game is already underway, in fact, and I believe an early 12-6 lead is what we are looking at in that one. The Johnnies are off and running against Wagner. And number 3, UConn, taking on Lemoyne. Who? Lemoyne, the Dolphins in upstate New York. That should be not a fun one for Lemoyne, as we're expecting UConn to easily be able and win that game. The Auburn Tigers, though, nothing short of dominant, including flying on planes together where they force landings because teammates beat each other up here. Should be very interesting. But Auburn coming in at number 5, taking on Kent State. This should not be a problem, but I am looking very forward to watching this Auburn team, who has beaten Vermont, who is every year the America East favorite to win that conference, and they are again this year, but they beat them 94-43. Then they beat Houston, of all teams, on a neutral court, 74-69. And boy, oh boy, Ken Palm's got the Tigers rated right up at the top as well. They should. This is one of the better Bruce Pearl teams that we have seen in a long time. The offense is good, but the Tigers defensively are really, really good. Broom is back. Another one of these 5th or 6th year seniors now. This is the final year for the COVID exemptions for guys. So Johnny Broom is certainly taking advantage of the extra time in college. But Auburn, they are a very good team here this year. Bruce Pearl, I think, not looking to get bounced early this year in the NCAA tournament. And they've got a pretty easy one here tonight, but worth keeping an eye on. So we got much more college hoops plus NBA action we'll dive into as Game Time Decisions continues on the Grid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday. I can't believe it, November the 13th. The association is off and running here tonight, 24 hours after the opening round. Group play here in the NBA Cup last night. A lot of back-to-backs here tonight. Some interesting spots, maybe some bounce-back opportunities here, and Adam Kaufman stepping in. He has got his finger on the pulse of the association tonight, and it starts with game one with the Pacers and the Magic. Magic at home seem to have figured a few things out without Paolo Banchero. I don't know how long that's going to last. However, let's talk about whether or not we think the Indiana Pacers, and it looks like a pick-em price, are the Pacers worth a stab in this one on the road?
I think they are. I mean, it wouldn't be one of my favorite bets of the day, but I think, as you noted, it being a pick'em, the Magic, they're just sort of playing above their heads right now. Whereas I feel like the Pacers, who come in terms of all their key guys, they are mostly healthy. You know, they have Halliburton, Siakam, Turner, the like. You know, they don't have all of their depth pieces off the bench. Like Nembhard is not available to them. Mathurin is going to play. I just think that ultimately, even on the road, they are the better team. So. That coupled with obviously the pace that they play at, I think it's a good pace up spot for Halliburton. Look at his assist numbers. You know, he's ripe for a double-double. FanDuel's got that promotion going tonight where they're offering boosts on double-double parlays. Halliburton's one of those guys that makes sense to throw in there. So, yeah, I would go with Indiana tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Orlando's got other things to figure out. I am still trying to figure out how the Celtics lost to the Hawks last night. I was hoping, Adam, that you could shed some light on this as they, I don't know, should we be laying 10 right now? It doesn't feel like they're a cover machine anymore. They're taking on the Nets on the road. It feels like a nice bounce back, but by margin?
It's a great question. I've been thinking a lot about it because, like you said, the number's big. That being said, again, I wouldn't make it a huge investment, but if you were going to bet this one, I think there are a couple of different ways to approach it because I absolutely do believe Boston is going to win after getting embarrassed at home last night. Now, I don't think the Celtics care that they lost in, you know, the first game of the NBA Cup qualifying round or anything like that. They got bigger fish to fry, bigger dreams that they are chasing than an in-season tournament title or Emirates NBA Cup championship or whatever the heck the thing is called at this point in time. That being said, these games do matter in terms of, you know, wins and losses ultimately and eventual seeding in the postseason. And there are lessons to be learned from these games. And the Celtics, they went out last night. They had a big lead. They were up 15 plus points. You know, I think they just kind of looked on the other side and figured there's no Trae Young. Hawks are, you know, sort of spunky, but not a team we necessarily have to take seriously, and we're going to cruise. And obviously that backfired. And by the time they sort of snapped back to where they had to be, it was a little too late. You know, they were a little shell-shocked at that point in time. I know it was only a 1-point loss. You know, Boston absolutely could have won that game, but it never should have been in a position, to your point, where it was a toss-up kind of game. And so Celtics, they played with their food a little bit, and I think that they're going to come out and respond to that tonight. Al Horford's not going to play. We knew that. You know, he's not going to play on back-to-backs. But whereas Jason Tatum was a question mark going into last night's game, on the injury report, is he going to play? And ultimately he does. I kind of figured, all right, well, maybe that means he doesn't play today because, you know, all right, well, the Cup games are quote-unquote more important. Let's play him in that. But the fact that he didn't even show up as questionable on the injury report today basically tells me that Tatum is pissed and that he's going to come out firing. So I would look over on his points prop, his three-pointer prop, and another guy that I think is in line for a potential double-double because obviously the 10 rebound games are not out of the norm for him. So that's what has me saying definitely Boston's going to win. I'd money line parlay it, you know, with some other favorites tonight that you might like, whether it's Cleveland or Minnesota or San Antonio, teams like that. But I am comfortable with a smaller play on the cover because I just think the Celtics, you know, are going to want to go out. It's early season. It doesn't matter. They don't need to win by 30 or anything like that. But I do think there's a little bit of pride on the line that they want to kind of make a statement with it.
We were curious to see what we were going to get from the Sixers last night with the return of Embiid, but he looks like a guy that hasn't played basketball in a while there. And now this team is sitting 2-8. But the Knicks got a rather easy victory, but a whole lot of minutes for the Knicks last night in their starters. Now they got to go back home, take on a Chicago Bulls team that has been a little bit feisty here. And I don't know. I mean, Brunson looked like he got hurt early in that game last night. We're talking 37, 38 minutes for everyone else. Should we be laying this kind of number with the Knicks tonight?
Well, listen, I definitely have some thoughts on those Sixers, so I'm sure we'll get there. But as far as the Knicks go, no, I would take Chicago with the points, especially, it was damn near 10 at one point. What is it now, 8.5? I would take the Bulls, and I wouldn't get all shocked if the Bulls win this game outright. To your point, the Knicks, they played big minutes last night. What else is new? Tibbs runs his guys into the ground.
Yeah.
The Bulls, though, in not having played last night, they've got all their key guys. Levine is playing, Vooch is playing, White, and all these, they've got their main five healthy and available. And then outside of that, as you said, Brunson got dinged up last night. There were questions to whether he was even going to return to that game. He did, and had a pretty strong finish in that fourth quarter. I think he scored 10 points in the fourth, but ultimately he is, sort of ailing. He was questionable and even viewed as kind of a game time decision going into this one tonight, until we got word just a little while ago that he is in fact going to play. So I wouldn't be surprised if his workload is either a little bit lighter, or even if it's similar to what it normally is, if he just doesn't quite look himself. And so, as good as Towns and Hart and some of those other guys have played around him, I don't expect it to be a huge game for Brunson. I don't think it's going to be an emphatic win for the Knicks.
I'm kind of with you, which also has me leaning towards the under and a bit of a flat spot here for the Knicks. All right, you said you have some thoughts on the Sixers. We'll get to that game, taking on the undefeated Cavs. We'll talk about a couple of the other games on the schedule as Game Time Decisions continues on the.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from, just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network, talking some NBA action here. Loaded slate. A lot of back-to-backs here tonight. Adam Kaufman stepping in. And we were talking, Adam, about the Knicks after their beatdown of the Sixers last night. They got to take on the Bulls here. But those Sixers don't have the night off. They've got to host the best team in the NBA right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who are sitting at 12-0, they are laying double digits. There's really no reason for them not to go 13-0. Whether they cover this number is a different story, but I think the Sixers are in trouble long term here, no?
Oh, without question. Yeah, and short term as well. It's not just long term. I mean, I think we're staring at a lost season for Philly. That doesn't necessarily mean the Sixers aren't going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to do anything when they get there. They're just, there's no health there. So I can't even sit and say, oh, there's no cohesiveness. We don't know. We haven't seen these guys together. I mean, last night was the first game Joel Embiid has played all year. Looked terrible. Looked like a shell of himself. And oh, by the way, cost me a massive parlay because I was dumb enough, Joe, to put him in there simply at 4 rebounds. All I needed was 4 boards out of Joel Embiid in this parlay, and it would have cashed, and he had 3 in like 26 minutes. Stupid. I blame myself and him. I blame him as well. But now you don't have Embiid. You don't have Paul George. He's resting. You don't have Tyrese Maxey, who's dealing with the injury. Who do you have? Honestly, I've seen people in the NBA betting community smashing the over on McCain over like 17.5 points, laddering him up to 25, 30 points, figuring he's going to be the offense for Philly. I don't know how it gets done, and especially when you have a, generally healthy team on the other side. I know Jarrett Allen isn't, entirely right, but he is going to play. A lot of people wondered if he was going to sit, and then Mobley slides into his spot. No, Allen is going to play. The Cavs care about keeping this winning streak alive and, may not have a test until they're sitting couple games out at 15-0 and then have to battle the Celtics, the defending champs. And, we'll see what that looks like. But in the meantime, there is no reason to get in front of the Cavs train right now. I'm good with the number. I'd lay the 11. I think Cleveland steamrolls Philadelphia tonight.
Yeah, it's very hard to look any other way other than that direction. I think until those big three get healthy and are on the court at the same time, it's going to be tough sledding here for the Sixers. Interesting game also coming up here tonight with the Clippers and the Rockets. I thought this was interesting. Everybody loves Sengun and his over props, whether it be his PRA, his rebounds, his points, whatever it is. He's got a matchup here tonight. He's almost guaranteed at least 30-plus minutes here. Norman Powell is another guy that seems to be getting a lot of love. Van Fleet was questionable, but it's kind of hard to trust this Clippers team to have enough offense, although Harden returning to the place in which, if we're being honest, was his best basketball years, was it not?
I'm trying to think. I mean, yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's, obviously that's where he got the most run and gained the reputation, became the beard and made the big money and all of that. Yeah. Unfortunately, he was also a perennial failure in the playoffs, but putting all of that aside in terms of, all-star teams and MVP consideration, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, he was great there, but I don't know. I mean, he's sort of taken on, to his credit, a different role with this team. He's not the guy who's going to go out and score 25, 30 points on, never mind on a nightly basis, really ever. Like he's the guy that's going to give you like 17 points and facilitate, give you a double-double, give it 10, 11, 12 assists. You mentioned Powell. I love Powell. Powell has been one of the great stories to start this year, as far as I'm concerned, because for whatever reason, the books aren't adjusting. This is a guy who has had at least 15 and often 20 plus points every single game so far this year. And yet you can still, if you're like parlay piecing things together, massive builders, you're not even getting an egregious number on 10 plus points out of Powell or hitting a 3 or whatever it may be. All these little components that you can put together in a builder. And so I like Powell. I like him a lot. I've been playing his overs pretty regularly, and points plus assists as well. I think that it's a good spot for the Clippers, good spot for Powell, definitely not for Houston.
20, I believe 21.5 is what I saw his points prop at, but he just dropped 31 against OKC, who is by far.
Folks aren't adjusted to him.
On great. Norman Powell, it is. Adam Kaufman, always a pleasure, brother. Appreciate it. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Fortunately, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri, appreciate you stopping by as we are off and running here on the hardwood tonight, both college basketball as well as the NBA. We've got one game currently underway, and we've got a bunch getting ready to tip off here. Pacers out in front now at the end of the first over the Orlando Magic, 27-18. Certainly like the Pacers' opportunity in this game to kind of run away with it. And that looks to be what they're doing here early on. Celtics and Nets getting ready to tip off, as well as the Cavs, 76ers, Bulls, Knicks, and I believe, Bulls, Knicks, and then Pelican and the Thunder will also round out this hour with the opening tip. But in addition to, of course, the NFL, college football, NBA, as well as college hoops, let's not forget the PGA Tour back at it here with another tournament coming up this week as we welcome in our good friend Brady Cannon in the house. And it's always good when the Butterfield Bermuda Championship is on the calendar here, Brady, and that's exactly what we've got going on this week. So what are we thinking here? Is this another one of these tournaments with big numbers that we can actually cash a pretty good ticket?
It's pretty interesting, Joe. You've got this little fall swing that's been going on since, late September, mid-September, 8 events in this series, and we've got 2 events to go. The Butterfield Bermuda, like you're talking about, then next week we go back to the mainland, St. Simon's Island, Georgia, at Sea Island for the RSM Classic. And guys are trying to finish in the top 125 in the FedEx Cup points list to keep their job for next year. So a lot on the line. Not seeing a lot of stars. We saw Justin Thomas and a few guys in Japan. Got a couple names here, Mackenzie Hughes, Nick Taylor, but I think obviously when we get to Kapalua in January, all the luminaries will be showing up again. But it's been kind of fun. It's been a good little off season, and trying to pick some winners is not easy when you've got a lot of randomness. And we almost got home last week. I had Carson Young at 85-1. And he finished one shot out of a playoff, so just came up short there. But we're going to try and get it done a couple more weeks here, take a break for about a month, and then recharge the batteries for January.
Yeah, it was funny because we talked about that last week on the show, and I asked you, I was like, well, why the hell is somebody like Austin Eckroat in this championship?
Yeah.
He doesn't need the points. There's absolutely no reason for him to be here. So maybe is he telling us something? And he told us on Sunday, I guess, he wanted to win the tournament, but we're off to Bermuda this week, and I believe per square foot, there's more golf courses in Bermuda than any place else. So what are we looking at? Give us some names here that we can center our bets around.
Yeah, Port Royal Golf Club, a par 71, incredibly short, only like 6,800 yards by tour standards, but she's going to play long this week, Joe. We're expecting a lot of weather. It apparently rained out there today. It's supposed to blow on Thursday. They get a little bit of a reprieve on Friday. Then it's supposed to blow again over the weekend. I mean, they're talking gusts up to 40 miles an hour here. So this is going to be brutal. If you want any idea, last year, Camilo Villegas won it, University of Florida guy, 42 years old now. He won it at 24 under par. This year, our friends at the Westgate Superbook, Jeff Sherman, has set the under-over for a winning score at 13.5. That's how much he's figuring on the wind's going to blow. Basically half of what Villegas won it with last year. So I figure when the wind's blowing like that, you have to be hitting the ball pure. There can't be any mishits or anything like that, or the wind is just going to eat it up. So you got to be ball striking your tail off, and you got to be scrambling because you're going to miss some greens, and you got to be able to get up and down. So I looked at ball strikers and scramblers and guys that do well on these little coastal type courses like we see in Hawaii for the Sony and, like next week at Sea Island, those type of tracks. I landed on Mackenzie Hughes. He's one of the favorites at 18-1, one of the elite players in this field, one of the few guys that has multiple wins on tour in this field. And he's been playing well. I think he can get it done again. Andrew Novak, just a pure ball striker, stripes the irons, good off the tee. We'll see if he can get the putter hot. Nick Taylor, another guy, another Canadian, another guy like Mackenzie Hughes that has won multiple times on tour. Also a winner at Pebble Beach, one of our correlated courses. And Mackenzie Hughes, a winner at Sea Island, one of our correlated courses. So these guys have proven that they can play good on these shorter coastal golf tracks. And Nick Taylor, he's got really all the entire package, the short game and the ball striking. And then Grayson Sigg at 50-1 went off the radar a little bit with him. This guy, he's got good history here. He's finished 11th and 22nd. He's been playing really well this fall. He's won a couple times as an amateur at Pebble Beach. And then finally, this week's 85-1 shot, Nate Lashley, who just seems to make a living in making cuts on these, again, shorter coastal type designs. In Puerto Rico, the last 3 years, the guy's finished 7th, 8th, and 3rd. And if you look at, he's done well at the Sony, he's done well at Pebble, he's done well in Mexico, number of top 10 finishes. So hoping he can break through and get to the winner's circle this week in Bermuda.
So what happens now in this thing? Is it top 125 keep their card? Is that how it works, Brady? Is that what guys are battling for right now?
Yeah. And I think if you don't make it into the top 125, they ship you off to the Corn Ferry Tour or something like that. And, you kind of got to work your way through there and try and get back on the into the big league, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, you talked about it with Austin Eckroat, a guy that wasn't playing for anything. He's already locked up in all the signature events. He's inside the top 50.
Yep.
He's got his tour card for another 2 years, has a win right by you there at the Cognizant Classic at, Palm Beach Gardens. So, I think that says something about your handicap. You don't necessarily, it's like in football. We've talked about this, the team that must win, they're not always going to win. If you must play well to get inside that top 25, that's a lot of pressure to deal with. There's a reason you're on the bubble at 125. Maybe you're not that good.
Yeah.
So, these guys that don't have the pressure, they can just be footloose and fancy free. And we saw what happened with Austin Eckroat last week.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, well, what a Sunday that was. There, our boy. I looked it up. Daniel Berger, our boy, there, I think is coming in He was top 20, I think, right? He finished top 20, I think, in Mexico. But now I think he's right around the cut line. I think he's 125, 124 or 125. So he is a guy that obviously needs to have a pretty good showing in order to be able to keep that card. And you and I both like him a lot. And it would just feel like a top 10 should be in order for him this week, no?
I'm rooting for him, Joe. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
He's a great player. I'd love to see him return to, what we've seen out of Daniel Berger in the past when he's playing in Ryder Cups and competing for major championships. But a little bit of a red flag. My friends at BetMGM sent me the distribution on the bets. Daniel Berger, #1 in ticket count percentage. Over 6% of the tickets are on Daniel Berger. That doesn't always work out so well. He is third highest in handle. He's got almost 7% of the handle to win this tournament outright. And then he is the second largest liability for BetMGM sportsbooks. So, these sportsbooks, they continue to make money. That liability doesn't always typically cash in the favor of the sports bettors. So, yeah, that right there doesn't look great for Daniel Berger. But, I'm hoping he makes it into the top 125 and we get to see him next year.
Yeah, well, good seeing you on the Corn Ferry Tour there, Daniel. Sorry about that. Now it's the whole betting market has just mushed you right now.
Yes.
As everybody is looking at Daniel Berger. Oh, who saw that coming? Unbelievable. Brady, always a pleasure, my man. We'll talk to you again during the week. Game Time Decisions returns after this.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. Ready? I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Fortunately, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday as we get ready. Coming up top of the hour, we've got you covered here with In-Game Live on the SportsGrid Network. Keeping an eye on everything from the NBA to the NHL and college basketball. Not to mention some action football here tonight. And Scotty Wetzel will take it over. We'll pass him the baton coming up at the top. And we got a lot of great games in the association here tonight. Some interesting spots there, Scotty, and none more interesting, I think, than your Boston Celtics, who, how in the hell did they lose to the Atlanta Hawks, number one? And how in the hell am I supposed to trust laying, 10 against the Brooklyn Nets on the road? What are we doing with the Celtics tonight?
Yeah, it's amazing. How about that? Back-to-back games. Well, I didn't think that was allowed in the NBA anymore. Someone missed the memo on that one. So, listen, under normal circumstances, Joe, I'd be all over the Celtics, right? Bounce back, get embarrassed at home. Not so much how much they lost by, but just the fact they lost as a 14, 15-point favorite. But, yeah, this is something not right. Unless Porzingis is on the court, this team, it just has its issues. I don't know. Even go back to last year when they had a phenomenal season. So, you know what? The Brooklyn Nets, say what you want. They're lousy straight up, but they're great against the spread. One of the best against the spread records in the NBA. They just tipped off. You can still get it basically at the same number. Brooklyn, 9-2. NBA best. 9-2 against the spread. They're at home. You mentioned it. They're getting almost 10 points. So give me Brooklyn plus 9.5 to keep this thing semi-close.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Can't trust the Celtics at this point. Detroit, in one of the most epic screw-ups of the Miami Heat era there last night, in overtime, win a game. Now they got to go take on the Milwaukee Bucks. No Lillard, it appears, here tonight. But the total is where you focused on in this game. What are you thinking?
Yeah. By the way, weird press conference from Eric Spoelstra. I watched that. I didn't know if he was going to break out laughing or break out crying. I mean, it was very strange, right? But he calls a timeout of 5 seconds of overtime for those that didn't make it or didn't watch it, where they didn't have it. He pulled a Chris Webber, and he even brought that up, I think. So I'm going under, Joe. You know what? Detroit, new head coach. Is an under team. Milwaukee, believe it or not, an under team as well. That now it's probably because they struggled a little bit, but even last night in a 14-point win, they went way, way, way under. Bucks 8-3 under, including 5-1 at home, where this game is, and the Pistons 8-4 under. So 215.5. That's a decent sized number. Give me the under 215.5 Detroit and Milwaukee.
We were just talking earlier with Adam Kaufman about the Houston and Clipper game. Norman Powell continuing to drop points left and right. We thought, no, maybe not a bad prop game here for the Houston Rockets, but another game you like the total in.
I do. Again, 2 more under teams. A lot more unders this year, believe it or not, for certain clubs anyway. Rockets 7-4 under in their 11 games, and LA 7-4 under in their 11 games. And again, you're getting a halfway decent number, 214.5. I'm not afraid of going under in games like that. Once it gets into the 205s, 206, 207s, then. But as long as they're going to keep it in the teens, two teams that wants to play defense. Houston realizes that's what they have to do if they want to win on a big-time level. So give me under 214.5. Houston at home against the LA Clippers.
Yeah, and I listen, if you think the Celtics were bad last night, what in the world were the Minnesota Timberwolves doing against the Portland Trailblazers? Portland got ripped by Billups, their head coach there, and they came out and played a very good game, but Minnesota just looked uninterested. They got him again tonight. Is Minnesota going to look interested in this game?
Yeah, rare back-to-back, same city, same game, right? You would think so. Boys in Vegas, they don't miss a beat, Joe. I was all psyched to bet Minnesota, and I did, but I was hoping the line would be, 4.5, 5.5, maybe 6.5, right? And then they pound you with 9.5. It's like, oh, fudge, right? I mean, but you have to do it. Is Minnesota going to lose back-to-back games to Portland? They had beaten them 5 straight heading into this little 2-game series here. They get embarrassed. They don't even lose a close game. They lose by double digits. We're going to see what Minnesota's made of tonight. If they don't win and cover tonight, that's it. I'm not going to bet them for the rest of the season. Give me the teacups laying a 9.5.
I took them in the first half, too. I mean, I expect them to come out breathing fire here tonight. Yeah, it's like, come on. All right, let's switch to the ice here. The Carolina Hurricanes are going scorched earth, apparently. Winners 9 of their last 10. They are just blowing teams out left and right. So what happens now against the Utah Hockey Club here tonight?
Yeah, hey, listen, you got to bet Carolina, right? I know Winnipeg is stealing all the headlines, 15-1 now, and rightfully so. But very quietly, Carolina is not bad themselves. They've won 9 of their last 10, including a nice 5-2 win at Vegas the other night. So, I mean, they are playing great hockey. 11 of their 9 wins have come in regulation, Joe. So can't lay the 2-1 realistically unless you got a lot of money. So let's take them to win in regulation, -130, drops it almost down to pick 'em. So Utah 6-6, halfway decent, the old Arizona team, but this is clearly just a pro Carolina play, -130 to win in regulation.
All right, so we've got the Kings taking on Colorado. Colorado, it feels like, is finally started to figure it out here. My question is, though, are we counting on the Kings to add a lot of goals in this game? Is that why we're looking at an over?
Yeah, Colorado 8-1-1 over their last 10 home games. Obviously dating back a little bit to last year, but that's only 1 or 2 from last season. So that's a pretty good number. They've been giving up goals, getting a little healthier. McCarr's back. That they should be able to continue that streak against an LA team that can hold you down to like a 1 or 2 goal game. But I'm thinking Colorado at home. Let's go with the over 6.5, and I'll throw the last one. Vegas, you see there -145. Perfect bounce back spot for the Golden Knights. They got embarrassed last game, as I mentioned, losing at home to Carolina. 6-1 last 7 games after losing by 3 goals or more at home, as they are. And here's one for you, Joe. Anaheim 6-32 last 38 games as a home underdog.
Oof.
Between 150 and 200 as they are tonight. 6-32. That tells you they don't win games like this.
Oof. Well, they don't win a lot of games at all. Team total under 2.5 for me as well. Scotty, we appreciate it. We'll see you coming up top of the hour in-game live. We'll close it out next here on the Grid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all strong, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready to wrap up this edition. In-game live coming up top of the hour. They will have you all caught up with everything happening in the NBA as well as college basketball. NHL slate here tonight. We just talked with Scotty Wetzel about a couple of those plays, not to mention Maction football. That is right. We've got football on our minds here tonight here. Certainly college football, these little midweek Maction games underway. Northern Illinois out in front of Akron 17-6. Eastern Michigan is a 10-point dog on the road taking on Ohio. The Bobcats, they're up 7-0. And Kent State is in the red zone here on Miami of Ohio. We told you Miami of Ohio laying 30.5. It's a 10-7 game. Miami of Ohio leading, but Kent State threatening to add some points here. Not good. It looks like a dog kind of night here as Akron also is about ready to put more points on the board against Northern Illinois. And speaking of dogs, how about Wagner in college basketball giving the Johnnies, the St. John's, number 22, and Rick Pitino, giving them all sorts of fits right now. It is a 5-point game as the Johnnies were a good 14, 15-point favorite in this game over Wagner. 33-28 right now in the second. Wagner coming out hot in the second half. So a possible upset brewing there. We're going to have to keep an eye on that one there. We also are looking forward to a couple of other games getting ready to tip off. But UConn as a 38-point favorite. Well, they have 38 points. They're beating Lemoyne there 38-19 at the break. I don't see any reason to think that that won't continue. However, Montana giving Tennessee some fits right now. They are at the break there, of course. Number 11, Tennessee, 40. Montana, 31. So it's a 9-point lead for Tennessee in that one. The Bonnies also on top of Florida Gulf Coast right now, 38-34. That is at the break. We did tell you earlier, we did like taking the points with California as they're getting ready to take on Vanderbilt, and that is coming up top of the hour. They're going to tip off there. 8.5, 8 points, 7.5. Two teams that are loaded with transfer portal players. Both teams look to be very, very good this year, better than they were a year ago. But it seemed like 8.5 points for two teams that are about even is an awful lot. That game is coming up here at the top of the hour. And you heard it here. Hofstra, the Pride, taking on Seton Hall at Uniondale, New York. Seton Hall, not good this year. They are laying 4.5. We like Hofstra as the ultimate outright dog winner tonight. Give me the Pride to undo Seton Hall, who is basically riding their past successes here in the marketplace. No way they should be laying more than 2 buckets in this game against Hofstra, who is the number 7 3-point shooting team in the country. Auburn, also number 5, who has just been steamrolling everyone they've played. Now it's early. It's only the second week here of the season, but there are a lot of things to like about this Bruce Pearl Auburn Tiger team. They take on Kent State. And it would not shock me at all if Auburn absolutely covers this 22.5, 23.5 number tonight in that game. Houston looking to come to bounce back after that loss to Auburn last game out. They're taking on the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana. They're laying 31. I would not want to step in front of Houston after a loss. And in the NBA, get ready for it. Pacers on top of the Magic. We expected that. But how about the Celtics being outshot 26-16 in the first quarter by the Brooklyn Nets? Celtics were laying 10 in that game. Also, the Bulls out in front of the Knicks, 22-18. The Cavs in a battle with the Sixers right now, 26-25. The good news is, Scotty Wetzel, Dave Sharapan and company, they will all keep you posted on all of these games. You don't have to go anywhere. In-game live is straight ahead. Game Time Decisions. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good luck. Enjoy the games tonight.